Hey, it's Jorge from brewbeerandDrinkit.com, and today I'm going to be brewing a Belgian Saison. The recipe for this beer is going to be fairly simple. There's really all kinds of things you can do with this specific style. You can do anything from doing just very simple grain bill, like just Pilsner malt, maybe a little bit of sugar, and then using your Belgian style yeast strains. And really the yeast strain is where it's at. Now with the yeast strains, you can go very crazy with wild strains like bread. You can use Brettanomyces, or in my case, what I'm going to be doing is using Lactobacillus to give the beer a little bit of that tartness that you might want to get in this specific style. Some people like to go for the funkiness, so there's really all kinds of things you can do. Same thing with the grain bill. You'll see some people do Vienna or Munich malt, or some people will do other kinds of grains like rye, oats, or spelt. So in my case, here's what I'm doing, and again, this is just what I want to do, and a lot of it has to do with some of the things that I'm doing to kind of brew a little bit more on the healthy side of the beer. So one of the things that I chose to do for this beer, and there's going to be some things that I'm kind of be testing out, is I'm doing 6 pounds of Belgian Pilsner malt. So it's a good quality of Pilsner malt. I've got a pound of Vienna malt. I've got 2 pounds of spelt. This is unmalted, bought it from Whole Foods, so it's not malted spelt, it's just regular spelt. And then for sugars, I'm going to be using piloncillo, which is one of the best kinds of sugars that you can get. This is essentially just raw sugar, so it's not modified or anything. Very good. Anyways, I'm going to be using RO water, so I've got some gypsum, calcium chloride. For yeast strains, I picked up White Labs WP565, which is basically your DuPont style Saison yeast strain, pretty much where everything is judged against. And then you've got Lactobacillus delbrueckii, and I've got 2 vials for this one. And so again, one of the things that I do want to point out, especially since my last video, I got a very positive feedback as far as wanting me to share a little bit more on the health side of brewing beer. And one of the things that I do want to point out is, bacteria. When it comes to brewing with lactobacillus and other kinds of bacteria, when I first started brewing, I guess I had this misconception where I would hear the word bacteria, and that to me was like a bad word. It's like, I don't want bacteria in my beer. It almost sounds like it's a bad thing to have in your beer. But as it turns out, one of the things that actually helped me was, when I understood that a bacteria like lactobacillus is actually good bacteria, and you can go find this lactobacillus or other kinds of lactobacillus strains being sold as probiotics. Now, when you think of it, probiotics means for life, antibiotics means against life, right? So our health is very dependent on good bacteria like lactobacillus. So just want to point that out there. Kind of going to be throwing some of these little pieces of knowledge as I teach you how to brew beer. But anyways, going to be a fairly simple beer. Hops. Hops, I've got an ounce of citrus spalt. And to be honest with you, I haven't decided exactly how much I want to bitter this beer up. So I'm going to follow a somewhat of a different process, and I'll do this a 2-part video. So I'll do some of the things today. I'll try to explain as much as I can today. If not, video number 2, I'll explain a little bit more about why I went ahead and did my brew day the way that I'm going to be doing today. So anyways, that's it for now. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I did was to add water to my mash tun. Now realize that I'm using my kettle as my mash tun, and I'm adding the grains over the water. Now someone asked me once, do you add grains to water or water to grains? Normally I like to add water to grains, and in this case what I'm doing is I added water
Just what I estimated that I would need, but usually I underestimate if I do add my grains to water. And here's the reason why. I normally don't just make an estimate or a calculation from the very beginning. But in this case, you can see I'm adding more water to it, and that's because I like to check for consistency more so than go by 1.5 or 2 quarts per pound of grain, and that's kind of where I'm at. This is about 1.8 to 1.9 quarts per grain, and again, I'm checking mostly for consistency because I'm trying to kind of gauge and just feel how the mash is going to behave, how much water is going to be soaked up during the mashing process. So that's pretty much what I'm doing, and I ended up just under 2 quarts per pound of grain. So anyways, the way that I'm gonna mash this is I'm gonna time it so that I'm spending about 20 minutes in a dough-in rest, about 30 minutes just mashing at I should say a protein rest, and then about 60 minutes doing my regular mash. So anyways, after the dough-in rest, I'd say about 15 minutes into it, that's where I'm adding the salt. Keeping in mind that dough-in rest may actually have an impact on pH, so that's why I wait a little bit longer before I do that. You can see the salt or the mash react to the salt additions, which is kind of cool to see if you've never paid attention to that. But anyways, added the salt, about 3/4 teaspoons of gypsum and about 1/2 teaspoon of calcium chloride. Again, this is a fairly light beer, and I'm using RO water, so it's distilled water, essentially, no minerals. So that's why I need to add quite a bit of it for this specific style. So after you do the salt additions, again, this is about 15 minutes into the dough-in rest. Just going to basically go on with my mash, stir the mash. That's, I guess, one of the most important things for efficiency. You got to stir throughout the mash as much as you can. So anyways, temperature is going to keep rising slowly, and I'm going to be timing myself, taking about 10 minutes to go from a protein to starch conversion rest. And the starch to sugar conversion rest I did right about 145 degrees. So I just let this sit, and after I'm done, I started to add more water to heat this up. I actually wanted to spend a little bit of time at a higher rest, but it was more just however long it took for me to go out into a mash out. Now, I'm essentially doing a no sparge mash for this, and this is essentially how I would do a mash if I were to do a brew in a bag. I know some have been asking me to do a video. I haven't really gotten around to get a brew in a bag, but this is essentially the same exact process where you just add your quote-unquote sparge water after the mash. Now in my case, I'm going to be transferring to my regular mash tun, which I would be using pretty much only as a lauter tun. If you had a bag, you would obviously just take out the bag and you would be done. In my case, I have to transfer the wort and then go about my recirculating, and then I'm just going to basically transfer it right back into the kettle. So I'm just using my regular mash tun as a lauter tun in this case. Again, recirculation only as much as you want to for this beer style. It doesn't really need to be a clear wort. Actually, a lot of beers don't really need to have a clear wort. Everything will settle out. Anyway, so after that, you bring this to a boil, and really this doesn't even need to be boiled depending on what you're doing. There's a couple of reasons why I'm boiling this wort. One of them is that there's a couple of things that I wanted to do with this specific beer style. One of them was I wanted to collect a little bit of wort to make a yeast starter, and also basically to make a hop tea. So once I started to boil, basically just collected some wort, which I was going to use as a, basically wort to make a yeast starter later on. So this is something I teach in my program, Master Control. If you haven't had time to check it out, I really recommend it. Did that, and the other reason why I wanted to do this was to add my sugar. Now, being that I was a little bit more concerned about taking video and all of that, I forgot to do that. So I ended up just adding the sugar into the fermenter. I've always wondered what would happen if you do this. So when I was doing this, I thought, well, worst that can happen is I grow bacteria, but then again, I'm trying to grow bacteria for this specific beer style, so I don't think it will be that bad. And the only thing is, again, I was not going to aerate this, but I had to pretty much shake up the fermenter, or my fermenter, to get it to dissolve a bit. And after that, I added the lactobacillus. So sure, it didn't dissolve completely, but it dissolved enough. And then after day 1 and day 2, this is basically what I got. So it did start fermenting, so that whole adding the sugar to the bottom did not affect it at all. So anyways, about 5 days into it, I decided to, actually 6 days into it, I decided to make my yeast starter. And also basically hopping the yeast starter. This is the way that I am adding a little bit of bitterness to it, not a whole lot. Boiled for about 30 minutes, so really not a whole lot of bitterness with 1 ounce of Strissus malt. And anyway, so pitched the yeast starter, pitched the starter, and then I started to ferment, and that's where I'm at. So beer is fermenting good, started about 70, and it's slowly rising to wherever it wants to go. And this is going to take probably like a good 5 or 6 weeks in the primary fermenter before I transfer to a keg. So that's where I'm at. I'll give you an update as soon as I can and post a video review for this beer. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please don't forget to comment, share, and or like this video.